Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to capture a cabochon using this Pipa Knot inspired design, and you end up with a really decorative look to it that looks pretty complicated, but it's actually a fairly easy technique. Now if you like what I do on this channel and you want to see more, you can of course like, share and subscribe. That always helps loads. And if you want to support me beyond that, there's a super thanks button below the video, and you can also join the channel where you can get things like early access and exclusive content. Check that out below the video if you're interested. Otherwise, if you want to learn how to make this design, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we'll need. Now first of all we need our wire, and I'm using a 0.8mm here, and that's going to be for the whole piece. Now of course you can change up the gauge depending on the other materials that you're using and how you want your piece to look. Next we of course need the cabochon that we want to capture, so in this case I'm using an oval shaped purple dyed agate cabochon. And it measures 3 by 4 centimeters, but you can literally use many different shapes and sizes of stones, and this technique will still work out well. And then of course we need our findings. So in this case, because I'm turning it into a necklace, I'm going to need my chain along with a lobster claw clasp, an extended chain and a few jump rings to put it all together. Of course you can use whatever kind of clasp you prefer. Now we're then also just going to need a couple of tools. So I've got some flush cutters to be able to cut our wire, chain nose pliers to help manipulate the wire, and finally I'm using these 6-step bell making pliers for any loops we need to make. You can also of course easily use round nose pliers for this. So like usual, you'll be able to find the full tool and material list in the description box down below, along with useful links. Otherwise let's get it all ready and let's get started. Now the length of wire that we'll need to cut is about 80 centimeters of a 0.8mm here, and this is of course for the materials that I'm using. So if you're using a smaller cabochon for instance, you could use a shorter length, or a larger cabochon you could use a longer length. So to get started, I'm going to make sure I have my cabochon ready, and then I'm going to start towards one end of my wire. Make sure you also don't have any kinks or bends in it, so you can smooth it out if you need to. But I'm going to grab my pliers here, and towards one end, I want to leave a tail of about 10 to 15 centimeters, basically just enough to make a wrap loop and finish it off at the end. So at that point, I'm going to then just put a bend into it, about a 90-degree bend. Something a bit like that. So bring in the cabochon and then place it there and kind of put your finger on it to try and keep it in place. And I'm also going towards the top here, because what we're then going to do is work our way downwards on the cabochon as we're going to capture it more and more. So where you want it placed, I'm then going to take the long end here and keeping it in the position that I want it to be, then bend this around the side of the stone towards the back, and bring it out towards the other side here, and then on the back it's just going straight across like this. Now what you can always do if you need to along the way is straighten any wire out. We can also go in and make some adjustments at the end, but as you can see the cabochon easily wants to slip out. Everything is kind of jumping all over the place, but the goal is to then capture this more and more. So I'm going to try and keep it in this place here, and then bring the wire around towards the front again, in towards where that bend is, and across to the opposite side. So it's now coming all the way around here, but obviously it's still not fastened and it's still wanting to slip off. So what we need to do is then fasten this long length around where this bend is. So again, just keep it as much in place as you can. Now one thing I just want to mention is if you feel the need to, you can always grab a piece of tape. Now I like to use electrical tape for this. So if you feel it's necessary, but you don't have to of course, you can just on the back here place a bit of tape that's going to help it stay in position. It just gives a little bit extra grip on it. But then what we want to do is take the long end here and bring it then on the other side of that bend, and then around the back of it, back down to where it's coming from, and all the way around to go out towards the same side that it was coming naturally. And then we've basically just looped this length around the initial bend that we made, and then it's just a matter of getting it to sit exactly how you want it to. and this looks pretty good to me. You can always use pliers to help maneuver anything and shape anything you need to. I often find it can be a little bit easier with the pliers because you can get in where your fingers can't really get in. But this is then the position we're in. Now what you then want to do is make sure that this long length we're working with is coming around towards the side here, but a little bit further down than the initial wrap that we made. So we want a bit of distance between them, so don't bring it up right close underneath the first one there. So now I'm going to then bring it around the side again towards the back, making sure I have that bit of a gap there, and then push it around the back. Try and hold everything in place the best you can. Again, if you have that tape, that does help a little bit. And then bring it around the back towards the opposite side, and then around the front again, making sure there's a bit of a gap here on the other side, and bring it around towards the front, across to the other side. And then we need to basically make this loop again, but around the first one. So I'm bringing this on the other side of our length of wire here that we bent up, and then coming behind it. And as I'm coming behind it, what I like to do as well is make sure I push down on it a little bit to make these wraps nice and flat next to each other, as opposed to them starting to stack on top of each other. But then bring it around all the way. You can either move the wire or you can move the cabochon, whatever is the easiest for you. And there you can see what I was talking about. It kind of wants to slip behind the first wrap, and I prefer them to not do that. I want them to kind of lay next to each other, so that's why I'm pushing that wire down and flattening it out. So bring it around. It looks something a bit like that. So now we have two on either side here wrapped, and on the back it's looking like that. You can see there, I can see a little bit of a bend. You can always just straighten that out a bit. Again, you can also go in at the end and deal with that. Now for the next one, we come down. I like to come down about the same amount as I did between the previous distance there, but it doesn't have to be exact. Just kind of whatever you think looks nice, and then bend it around the side towards the back again. Come all the way around the back to the other side, just like we did the other times. Bend it towards the front again. And as I'm doing this as well, because obviously the warmth from the hands and fingers will naturally also bend the wire a bit, so I keep kind of smoothing it out with my fingers to make sure it stays looking nice and we don't get any unwanted kinks or bends in there. But if we do, we can deal with it along the way. Now we're at the front again. We're just going to keep doing the same thing. So bring it around to the other side of where the wire is coming from, and bring it up towards the other loops here. I just like to kind of make sure it's sitting just exactly like I want it to. So whenever you need to, use your pliers. Bring it up, and as I'm bringing it around and behind this tail, again I'm making sure I'm pushing down on it to have it staying flat next to each other, so they are building upwards on the top here instead of going under and over each other. Bring it all the way around, and you can see we are making these loops, you could say. They're kind of increasing in size because they're going around each other instead of behind each other. So just adjust anything if you need to. I like for the bottom part here to kind of not be too open. Bring it around. And just double check you like how it looks until... And just double check you like how it looks before we then bring it towards the side again. And you can see we are making our way towards the bottom more and more, which is also what we want to make sure we get past the widest point of the cabochon, which is obviously here in the middle for this shape. So we want to make sure we get underneath that, further down towards the bottom here. But beyond that, it's obviously also up to you how you want it to look. So we're just going to do it again. Go around the side, bring it around the back all the way. You can check on the back as you go to make sure it's not too out of shape. So this one I want to just straighten out a little bit more. But of course it is the back, so it doesn't matter too much. And then on the front here, bring it around the front, just like the other times. Continue to just use your fingers to hold things in place when you like how it looks. And then continue to bring the wire around. I want to just tighten that up a little bit. And then push down on that top wire, going straight up while I'm then bringing it around to make the next loop here. And now we also want to start thinking about finishing it off, because obviously at some point here we don't have any more space to wrap around. So it's up to you how many wraps or rounds you want to do of this. Obviously it also depends on the size of your piece and how you want it to look as well. So I think this is going to be my last one. And it's also not going to be a complete one like we did previously. So that means we're actually going to end up with technically having 5 wraps on this side here, but only 4 on this side, because I want to finish off the wire on the back, of course. So bring it around to the side and around towards the back. And now you can just take some time and kind of spread out your wires if you need to, because it's an uneven amount that we have. But if you kind of make sure the distance between the outer ones, so the top and the bottom one on either side, are about the same, it's not actually obvious that they're not the same amount of wraps. It kind of blends together nicely. So bring it around to the back, and then what we're going to do to finish this off, this tail that we have left, I'm going to connect it with the bottom wire that's going straight across here. And to do that, find it helpful to use pliers. But we want to basically get in behind it, so you can just pull it out a little bit, so we have just some space to be able to feed this through. And just take your time, try not get anything too out of place, and gently feed it underneath there. As you can see, it's getting a little bit wonky, so just take your time, straighten things back out whenever you need to. And I like to make sure that the connection point is going to be not too far towards one or the other side, but a little bit more towards the middle of the wire that's going across the back there. So whatever you need to do to get everything in position how you want it to. Make sure before I finish anything off, I keep checking the front, make sure that I'm happy with it. Because obviously once we fasten the wire off, it gets substantially harder to be able to adjust anything. But this is the look that we have so far. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and just start to fasten it off. So all I'm going to do really is this tail that we have, I'm going to wrap it around the wire that's going straight across by simply, it's already coming underneath, but then bringing it around back over the top. As if we're doing just a regular wrap on there, but instead of bringing the length through again, which you could do if you want it to be even more secure, but you don't have to do that. I'm then going to go in and cut off the excess, making sure there's just a short little end left. So cut that off, and then just grab that end, feed it in position, and then tighten it around the wire that it's wrapping around. So we make sure we basically tuck that end of the wire away as well. Now of course just double check. This one is opened up a little bit, so just push it back up and make sure everything still looks nice, and obviously make sure that it is secure. And before we decide that, let's just remove that tape so that it doesn't trick us in any way. So if the stone is not falling out, that is going to be secure. Now of course we still have this tail at the top, so all that's left to do is obviously finish that off, but also make a bail so we can actually hang this on something. So what I'm going to do is push it in towards the stone as far as it'll go, and then right here at the top where I want the bail to be, I'm going to then bend it so it goes straight up like that, and then all we're going to do is make a simple wrapped loop. So just a little bit above where that first bend is, I'm going to bend it again, and I'm just bending it towards the front. Then I'm going to grab my bail making pliers, and I'm just going to then bring the end back around so we get a full circle like that. And then grab onto the circle so it keeps its shape. Use the tail here to wrap below the circle, so that little straight piece of wire between our bends, until we have no more space to wrap. And make sure the wrap here comes towards the back, because we of course need to finish that off, but also then just use that to secure in the same way that we did on the bottom. I'm just going to do it at the top instead. So first, just make sure, if you need to, pull this top wire a little bit away from the cabochon, and then just gently feed this wire in behind that top wrap. And push it nice and tight against the cabochon there. And then we basically just want to finish this off in the same way that we did with the bottom one. So bring it around the wire that it's coming underneath there, as if we're doing a wrap. And if you want to, you can come through again and make more wraps, but personally I don't find it necessary. All I'm going to do is go in and cut off the excess. And then we have a little wrap there, and we have an open gap, so we just want to make sure we tighten that up and obviously secure everything in place, so we don't have any risk of that coming undone. So there we go, and just want to straighten out that loop a little bit. But then that is then also the bail, you could say, added. You can now put any form of chain or cord that you want through there, and you have your finished cabochon. And there's really lovely design on the front. Of course, here at the end, if you need to, you can go in and just adjust any wires. If you're not too happy with how they're sitting, you can always just gently adjust it. But once you're happy with it, you then have your finished cabochon captured in a very lovely and unique way, while also on top of that actually being quite a simple technique. It's just a matter of getting all the wires in the right position and get the final look that you want. So like I said, this technique also works great for different shapes, not just for the ovals like this. It's especially lovely for teardrop shapes, and you turn them upside down compared to how you normally would, because the design of the wire fits perfectly with that shape stone as well. But of course you can play around with it and also use other shapes as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now if you like different ways of capturing cabochons, I have loads more tutorials on my channel for that within several different mediums. I have a whole playlist just for that purpose. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.